Cleveland Cavaliers are making major moves. What is going on, y'all? FaizSportsTalk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NBA. Here to talk more about the NBA trade deadline as the Cavaliers have pulled off another sort of blockbuster deal. I mean, the players aren't exactly superstars in this deal, but they are pretty good to decent players, okay? So it's a three-team deal, so I need you guys to pay attention here because there's a lot of moving parts. So basically, it's between the Cavaliers, the Utah Jazz, and the Sacramento Kings, in which the Cavaliers get Rodney Hood and George Hill, okay? So that is who they acquire in this deal. The Utah Jazz get Jay Crowder and Derrick Rose, and finally the Sacramento Kings get Joe Johnson and Iman Shumpert. Now, when this trade was announced, it was also announced that Dwayne Wade was getting traded to the Miami Heat for a heavily protected second-round pick. So really, for me, I mean, I could talk a little bit about that later or in a separate video, but for the purposes of this video, I will mainly be talking about this trade and basically why it was made and who it helps. How much does it help the Cavs? Why did the Kings make this trade? Why did the Jazz make this trade? And everything in between. So let's start with, of course, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who acquired George Hill and Rodney Hood in this deal. I'll start with George Hill first. Now, George Hill has been linked to the Cavs for a long time. I mean, for the couple months prior to this trade deadline, there were rumors that the Cavaliers were interested in George Hill. They wanted George Hill. So obviously, there was some heavy interest there. And I even made a video about that. You guys can go check that out. And at the time, I said, if George Hill is who the Cavaliers end up basically getting at the trade deadline as sort of their biggest acquisition, then the Cavaliers are in a bad position, okay? Because I like George Hill, I don't love George Hill, okay? And here's the thing, when I made that video at that time, obviously I said if George Hill is the only guy that they get, but now we know they have Jordan Clarkson. By the way, made a video on that, go check that out. So they have Jordan Clarkson now. So now you've got two guys basically with Jordan Clarkson and George Hill who can both play the 1 and the 2. They're decent defensively. George Hill is a good defender. He's going to help them because Lord knows they need help on the defensive end. My God. Okay. And like I said, you can either start either or at the 1 and the 2, so that gives them some flexibility. Clearly an upgrade in that sense. Now, the main problem with George Hill and the reason the damn Kings wanted to trade him is because of his stupid contract. I mean, my God, his contract is horrendous. 3 years at about $20 million a year average, so the Cavaliers had to swallow that. That was the only reason the Kings were looking to trade George Hill, though he's been pretty awful with the Kings this year. Hopefully he turns it around because last year, before he was with the Kings, he was having a career year. So hopefully we get to see that George Hill with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But basically, that's the reason George Hill is now headed to Cleveland. Like I said, they were interested in him. They needed a playmaker, if you will. So now you've added two in Jordan Clarkson and George Hill. So I like that. Now, Rodney Hood, I mean, he felt like a throw-in in this deal, but I like Rodney Hood, man. I think he is a solid wing player. I think he can help this team. The thing with Rodney Hood is I actually want him to start at the 2 now. I no longer think J.R. Smith is a starting caliber 2 guard in this league. J.R. Smith doesn't do anything besides just shoot threes in the corner. I mean, he's not even a 3-and-D guy, okay? So I would like the Cavaliers to start not Rodney Hood, and now you're starting to see this team come together with George Hill, Jordan Clarkson, or you can have one or the other, and then you have Rodney Hood. At the 2, you can start. Then you've got LeBron James. Then you've got Larry Nance. Then you could have Love when he comes back. You could have Tristan Thompson start at the 5. So you can kind of see the makeup of this team is getting a lot younger, more athletic, a little bit more defensively oriented. So I like that for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, of course, they had to swallow that pill with George Hill, but Rodney Hood is on a 1-year, $2.4 million deal, so he is very cheap at this point, but this means you obviously will have to see if you want to extend him next year. He's going to want a new contract extension. So that is the deal from the Cleveland Cavaliers side of things. Now let's dive into the deal from the from the Kings and the Jazz side of things. So the Jazz acquired Jay Crowder and Derrick Rose in this 3-team deal. Now with Jay Crowder, he's still on a very affordable contract at 3 years at about $7 million. And Jay Crowder, if you guys remember in Boston, he was coveted as one of the, oh my God, he's on such a great contract. He's a good young, solid player. And then he goes to Cleveland, and my God, Jay Crowder looked awful. I mean, awful. He was a corpse on the court, because Jay Crowder would be on the court for like 30 minutes, and you see his stats like 6 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. I mean, the production was just not there. Even defensively, what he's known for, the Cavaliers were not that good defensively, even with Jay Crowder. So a lot of that luster, a lot of that lust, a lot of that appeal about Jay Crowder went away with his time in Cleveland, and so the Cavaliers were willing to move him even though he was on such a prime contract. And the Jazz have been interested in Jay Crowder since those days in Boston. They actually tried to acquire him from Boston before he was shipped to Cleveland. So now they finally get their hands on Jay Crowder. Now, even though they had to give up Rodney Hood, they're okay with that. Why? Donovan Mitchell. Okay, Rodney Hood, like I mentioned, he's on a 1-year, $2.4 million deal. It's expiring, which means what? He's going to want a contract extension. He's going to want to get paid. The Jazz don't want to pay Rodney Hood when they now have Donovan Mitchell, who is going to be the starting shooting guard of the future. Rodney Hood could demand in this market somewhere between 15, 18 to 20 million a year. I'm just saying, I don't know if that's going to happen, but he certainly could, and I could certainly see it happening. So that is something the Jazz wanted to avoid, and they of course do that by trading him before they have to extend him. And now you've got some quality depth with Jay Crowder. Of course, they also sent Joe Johnson away in this deal. I mean, Joe Johnson is on his last legs of his NBA career, so this is not too much of a loss here. They've got Joe Ingles. They've got other guys, like I said, Alec Burks. So Joe Johnson is not much of a loss. Like I said, they just wanted to not pay Rodney Hood, and so that's why they dealt him, okay? And then Derrick Rose, he is going to be released, folks. I'm telling you, Derrick Rose is not going to play for the Jazz. He is going to be released. I'm going to make another video about that, of where I think he could possibly end up, okay? So, but basically, he was included in this deal just to make the salaries match, okay? Let's move on to the Sacramento Kings, who acquired Joe Johnson and Iman Shumpert. Now, the Kings are interesting. They keep saying they want to get younger, and they keep acquiring freaking veterans, okay? I don't know what the hell is going on in Sacramento, but stop acquiring veterans, Kings, okay? Just stop it, okay? So they acquired Joe Johnson, like I mentioned. I don't know what's going to happen here. He could get bought out. They could actually keep him. But like I said, they don't intend to play their veterans down the stretch of the season. So I really don't think Joe Johnson is going to be a big part of this team, especially this year and moving forward. Iman Shumpert, they also acquired him in this deal. Now, he is an interesting piece because he's got, what, 2 years at about $10 million average left on his deal. So certainly Iman Shumpert, I mean, I'm not going to say, he's over the top in terms of, he can improve. He certainly does have a little bit of potential, but for the Sacramento Kings, this deal was really about shedding that George Hill contract. I mean, they just wanted to get rid of that awful contract, and they were able to do that. Whether or not they wanted Iman Shumpert that bad, I mean, Iman Shumpert is a decent wing player. For the Kings, they've got guys like Bogdan Bogdanovic. They've got guys like De'Aaron Fox that they are trying to develop. Shumpert could be a nice bench piece for them, but let's see what happens. But the main reason they were making this deal was just to shed that George Hill contract, and now they've got some salary cap space. I believe they've got $24 million in salary cap room. That could increase to $40 million if Iman Shumpert opts out of his contract next year and Garrett Temple opts out of his contract next year. So let's see what happens. But this deal was made for salary cap moves, and Iman Shumpert was basically a nice throw-in for them. So let's see if they keep him, and let's see what happens. But that's basically it, folks. That's the deal from the Cavs side of things, from the Jazz side of things, and from the Kings side of things, and why each team made this deal. So who do I think won this trade? Now, I do want to point out, winning a trade doesn't necessarily mean you get the better players. It is all about meeting your needs, okay? So did this trade meet your needs, whatever that may be, whether that be to create salary cap space, whether to shed salary cap, whether to acquire better players, or whether to get draft picks, okay? So in this trade, if you're looking at it from Cleveland side of things, they obviously wanted to get better players, and they were able to do that. They got the better players in this deal in George Hill and Rodney Hood. So that is a win for them. I don't like George Hill's contract, but again, they are not worried about taking on salary. They're worried about getting better. So they get George Hill and Rodney Hood. So I like this for them. With the Utah Jazz, they get Jay Crowder and Derrick Rose. Now, Derrick Rose, like I said, they're going to waive him. So really, they just get Jay Crowder. And who do they have to give up? Rodney Hood and basically Joe Johnson. So not a steep price to pay for Jay Crowder. But like I said, I've been really turned off with Jay Crowder's played this season. I don't know if you can turn it around, but my God, he has been awful. And if he plays like that for the Jazz, then, I mean, I know they didn't want to pay Rodney Hood, but we don't know how much he would have demanded. So let's see what happens there. But to me, the Jazz in this status, it's a TBD because I need to see how Jay Crowder plays. But overall, not a huge fan of this trade for the Jazz perspective. I thought it was decent. Let's talk about the Kings. Again, they acquired Joe Johnson and Iman Shumpert, and they had to basically give up George Hill in this deal. And this is a win. Okay, they were able to get rid of George Hill's contract and not take on too much salary back. This is a win for them in that sense. Again, I don't know why they were trying to get Joe Johnson and veteran players in this deal, but other than that, it's a win for them. They were able to acquire Iman Shumpert, who's a decent throw-in as well. But like I said, just getting rid of that George Hill contract was huge. They can now focus on developing De'Aaron Fox and moving forward with their young guys. So there you have it, folks. Those are my thoughts on this huge 3-team deal. Make sure you, like I said, you guys are subscribed to the channel. More analysis on trades coming as more trades break. You guys are going to want to turn on your post notifications because I'm going to bring in the heat. And y'all don't want to miss it, okay? Let's talk NBA. Hit me up on my social media, Twitter, Instagram, link down below for that. As always, thank you for watching.